Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzi, host of the Leaders Without podcast. Today, I have once again another special, wonderful guest for you, my good friend Cathy. Once again, we connected, I think 2-3 weeks ago from the Serving Circle. I love the Serving Circle, amazing community. And we had a talk last week, and we had such a beautiful conversation of so many things in common, especially one thing that really, talked to me almost at a soul level is because for those that don't know me, I've been fascinated with Brazil for ever since I can imagine the football, the music, the culture, and all that. I've been there many times. And then she mentioned that she spent a year in Brazil as a student exchange. I said, wow, that's amazing. So we have quite a few things in common. What she does, Cathy, is working with, I love her mission. She's helping people live the life of their dreams. She left a corporate job in 2013, and now she's been on a mission ever since to help people unstuck. She's a specialist in NLP. She's done also hypnotherapy. With a good chat about that because that's something I'm very fascinated as well. So a lot of amazing things. She's done hypnosis as well as quite a lot of other things like human design and other good things that we will unpack in this call. So Cathy, my good friend, it's an absolute honor having you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Pleasure.
I think when I talked with you last week, I felt at the end of the call that I had just come home to family. So it was really
Wow.
great to really feel that connected.
That's amazing. Thank you. I appreciate it. Same thing here. Now, I told you last time in the podcast that when I talk with my guest on the podcast, I like to have a look under the hood to see what's in the heart, to have a heart-to-heart conversation, and so name leaders with a heart. Are you ready?
Ready?
All right. Okay. So for people who don't know you, tell us, who's Cathy as a person, as a human being? We're going to talk about your business after, but as a person, as a human being, who's Cathy?
Yeah. So I would say myself, I am a kind-hearted human who is highly sensitive and also learning how to leverage my pure heart and intentions to help other people and not at my demise. So a lot of people who want to just help people tend to overgive. And as I'm aging and learning and having different lessons, I do want to do that. And there's nothing makes me happier than having a great impact on someone's life. And I'm also learning that we also have to do self-care for ourselves and to listen to our own heart. And when we come with a full cup that's overflowing with our own energy, we can then give more broadly to other people. And it's far more rewarding.
Wonderful. That's beautiful. And that's why we connected because we have the same. As soon as I started talking to you, I sensed this incredible positive energy and good heart that it was very easy for us to connect and have a wonderful conversation. And we're going to, of course, have more of that today to really get not only for me to know you more, but also for our audience to get to know the wonderful person that you are. So, all right. So tell us, Cathy, what makes you happy as a person?
Well, there are several things that make me happy, and I try to be happy most of every day. I love nature. I love the outdoors. As much as I can, I try to be outdoors, whether I'm walking. I have two dogs that I love to
Oh,
take for a
wow.
walk.
What kind?
They are little dogs. I have a
Okay.
Maltese Shih Tzu and a Maltese Poodle. So one's a little, I guess, 2, and the other one's about 12, and they're just bundles of happiness and love. So we get to do that, and then I love simple things. Honestly, I have a bird feeder, a hummingbird feeder outside of my window in
Wow.
my kitchen, and I have a whole little family of they all have different colors, and they come, and I just love to be doing the dishes and watching them as they're at the bird feeder because they're just so beautiful. And I love to read. I
Oh,
love
yes.
outdoors very much. I love to ski. I
Hmm.
am definitely a fitness person at the gym when I can be, and also just staying fit and mentally. Um, I do meditation and I enjoy yoga. So trying to kind of hit all the balance pieces and really stay grounded.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I'm the same. Very fit, very active, at least whenever the weather allows it here in Canada. But other than that, yeah, I've been trying to get into meditation. That's one of my goals because I have the hardest time quieting my mind. But with the help of amazing friends that I get connected to my podcast, they're giving me incredible feedback and guidance. And now, slowly, meditation is becoming a part of my life. So I'm very happy for that. You mentioned dogs. I was never fan of dogs or pets or animals, but since last year, my sister and husband they started getting they got a small golden retriever, and now this big boy has become so big. It's such an I love him to death. Each time I go there, even though everybody's just chilling and talking, I spend most of my time just playing with the dog. The dog just come with me and stays with me. The only thing I don't like is that my clothes get full of the air all the time, but I don't mind it. But other than that, I just love him, and I can't wait to get a dog myself because you can see this connection between a dog. I mean, most animals, but especially the dog, that is much deeper than anyone else. And the way that dog, his name is Leo, the way Leo responds, answers to us, and follows direction. I mean, he's a big boy. It's not a small puppy, a big boy, but still the way he listens, absolutely phenomenal. And the connection, especially with the eyes, the connection. I'm saying, wow, that's amazing.
Animals are really amazing. And it's interesting, we were having a conversation with a book club that I'm in, and we were talking about our earliest memories as children. And I grew up with a lot of animals, whether it was chickens, dogs, ducks, rabbits, whatever we had. But I was kind of like they used to tease and say I was like Snow White, because I was always outside, always with the animals. And that's where, as a child, that's where I felt comfortable. That's where I was happiest, and making mud pies and tree forts.
What's your favorite animal?
Gosh, I would have to say probably the hummingbirds. They just touch my heart for some reason. I just really love to watch them. They're so beautiful.
Absolutely. That's funny because it's interesting. Last week, I connected with a lady from Australia. Since she was a teenage girl, she's been able to literally communicate with animals. At one time, she was just Australia's all kinds of animals, especially snakes, and she was telling me last week that she was walking in the garden when she was a teen, and then all of a sudden there was no, sorry, she was inside the house and it started in her head hearing voices. Hello, are you here? Are you here? From a snake. So who's that? Oh, I'm the snake. Where are you? I can't see you. Just go in the garden. You will see me. She went to the garden and he was a snake. So ever since then, she's been able to communicate with animals. She even wrote a book called "Hello, Are You Here?" on Amazon. Phenomenal lady. I will have her on a podcast. I think in the next week or so. I would be very happy to connect you with her because you guys have both this incredible connection with animals. If you want, let me know. I'll connect you with her.
Fantastic. I love that.
Awesome. We'll do that. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Now, I mean, we covered most of answer the question I want to ask you next, but what makes you happy as a person?
Yeah. So like I said, being outside, I would
Mhm.
consider myself, I love travel.
Oh,
I
yes.
love travel. I consider myself to be more of a global citizen, is what I would like to say, because I do really try to put myself in other people's shoes. When I go to other countries, I do try to do, as they do. As you mentioned, I lived in Brazil as an exchange student when I was much younger. But I had said, I wanted to go to Europe, and they assigned me to Brazil, and I had never studied Portuguese. I didn't know the first thing about Brazil, and I was a little taken aback that I was going to be going there. But I went, and it was an adventure. It was fantastic. I learned so much when I was there that just really ignited this passion for travel, and also experiencing other cultures, really getting to get a different perspective than what we have here. So I would say when I'm traveling, that makes me happy. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love traveling. To travel for me is my religion, my passion. We're going to talk about travel in a moment, but to continue asking you a couple of more questions about you as a person, tell us what makes you smile.
A thought, a happy
All
thought.
right.
Um, I am known to be walking with music. Sometimes with dogs, I'll have the music on, or I'll have a podcast on, and I will smile, I will laugh. I think connecting and really seeing people, even if I don't give a smile or get a smile back, I will send a smile to someone. I have a funny story. This kind of relates to travel, which I will tell you. When I lived in Singapore, I used to take the train every day, and I would have a 30-minute commute. between walking to the train, taking the train, and then walking, of course, underground to the office. And I used to play a game with myself to see how many people I could smile to, and how many smiles I could get back in both my half-hour commute there and half-hour commute back. The biggest number I ever got as a smile back was 8 people. Now, this was a little few years ago, and they actually had, when I was leaving Singapore, they had hired a happiness mascot to try to get the people to be happier. But it was like, I felt like it was my mission. I was like, I'm doing this anyway, so I'm going to see if I can make eye contact, smile, and get a smile back. So
I love that. I love that. That's amazing. Wow. I used to do that as well when I was living in Hong Kong, just or random people just smile. Some people would think I'm crazy or just, think I'm smiling at someone else, but whatever. It just made me even more smile that, hey, thinking I'm, it's either way you win, either you get smile back or you just have a laugh yourself, so it's
right.
fun. Cool. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, tell us what makes you sad and angry?
Yeah, sad and angry. I guess what makes me most sad, that really hurts my heart, there's two things really. Ooh, I might even cry. Um, Currently, we just have a huge, I would call it like a mental health crisis of people who are really
Mm,
suffering, and no easy way to help solve the problem. And I think, I'm pretty sure it's global, but I know in the US it is shocking. And a lot of that can also lead to homelessness. I know in the area where I live, we have very high homelessness, and we also have a very high rate of suicide as well as drug addiction. And it's very prevalent. And I think probably the part that hurts my heart the most is it doesn't feel like we have come up with a great solution to any of it. And so it feels helpless to me. It feels very dark, and it feels difficult. And even trying to do the smallest little thing with, bringing food or bringing a cup of coffee or bringing a pair of socks or a blink, it feels so small in comparison to what these people deal with every day. That makes me sad, and it makes me mad that we treat human beings like this.
totally. I'm totally on the same page as you here because these are people we need to, sure, we cannot change everything, but we can at least bring a smile, make them feel happy, or make them feel like human being, like treat them with respect, with, we're not talking about treating them any special, but as a human being with dignity, just say hi, how are you, and not just consider them like part of the scenery, like a tree or like a post or whatever. Just say hi, these are human beings. Sure, they're going through tough time. Doesn't mean that they're always like that. Doesn't mean that they're losers or bum. No, it's just that it can happen to any of us. Just one wrong turn or one wrong set of circumstances, any one of us can be on the street. Especially nowadays, it's very hard. So all we need is just, hey, especially if you're commuting or if you're walking down the street, you see the same people, take 30 seconds, a minute. Hey, how are you? How's your day? What's your name? What's your story? Get them a cup of coffee, get them a sandwich, whatever. I mean, that's a lot of these people, because of the circumstances they've experienced. Most of them have lost hope in humanity, and by just you spending 30 seconds, a minute, just making their day, not just making the day, making their week, you can be the fire that's going to reignite the trust and their belief in good and people, and humanity, and that can be the kick in the butt, so to speak. They will need to get themselves back up and raising from that, because it can only go up. Or even once you start talking to someone, give them a book. You can't underestimate the power of a good book. There's someone at the right time that is open for that. All of this, most of these people, I can't tell you how many times I've read and heard stories of someone that was very successful, like lawyer, whatever. They had a bad divorce, a bad deal, whatever, and then they lost it all on the street. you know so just because someone on the street doesn't mean that they bump or loses, whatever. Don't judge, just go with an open mind, open heart. Talk to them as human being with dignity, with respect, and you would be amazed how far that can go. The most powerful thing is things that we consider like meaningless, very small, that can be life changing for someone. And I've had so many times on my podcast, I can talk about that, but this podcast not is about me but about you. But so yeah, I'm totally on that with you. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the thing that saddens me the most is the addiction issues, and not having
Mhm.
a way to really solve that. I feel like that is one of the biggest issues that is presenting. And I think also Seattle happens to be a city or a place where there is I'm not going to say it's more than any other place, but it's definitely prevalent. It's not something you can ignore, and it feels helpless, like there's no, I don't know how to fix it. I don't have the tools to fix it or the place to, it's just, yeah, which then leads us a little bit, I wouldn't say it's apathy, but then it's just there, and it feels like you can't
Yeah.
help or fix. So
Sure. I mean, we can come together. We can, wish for a change, but ultimately, the people that we consider leaders, they need to take responsibility and lead by example, and actually do this, take the steps, the measure that's gonna help these people. It's they have to come up with the right, projects or whatever, laws or whatever, to help them, because that's at that level that things can change. Sure, me and you and other people can do a little bit, but that's not gonna, it's gonna be just like a drop in a sea. It has to be done at a much higher level. So they have to come up and do good. It's all about doing good and impacting, and not just dividing but uniting people. That's what we need to do. So absolutely.
yes.
Now tell us, what scares you?
What scares me? I would say what scares me is our societal norms these days have gotten so far away from what I would consider to be uh, not even sacred values, but
Basic
we've gotten
values, yes.
away, yeah, away from who our true authentic selves are, and we've been given a different storyline that um, is disconnected from who we are as a person, and then that we are sort of being fed information to believe that that's the better way, whether it's virtual reality, or whether that's buying property in the metaverse, or whatever that is in this virtual world, versus what is here and present in this moment today. So that scares me, is that all these young kids and people who are rushing to this alternate universe, which isn't, it's not real, it's contrived, it's made up, and it's taking you away from who you are inside and who your authentic self is. That scares me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just that the way things are being done at the highest level by our leaders. If you think you got it bad in the US, we have it even worse here in Canada. We have an absolute clown. Even a clown would be insulting the clowns. But anyways, we're not gonna get into that. So that's another conversation. But yeah, that something has to be done. And sometimes the change can come from the grassroots. People like me and you, we can do things that can inspire others, and that's the whole principle of this podcast. I mean, if me and you talking, you sharing your story, you can inspire just one person to do good, and that person goes on to inspire another person, and so on and so forth. And together we can create a ripple effect at the ground, you know, at the roots, ground roots, and that's how things are done. So definitely, even though we cannot change anything, nobody can change anything by themselves, but together, one plus. That's one of my mantras. 1 plus 1 is not 2, but 11. 1 plus 1 is not 3, but 111, and so on and so forth. So, and that's where the magic happens. It exponentially, explodes, and that's where miracles happen. Something that we might consider a miracle, but in the grand scheme of things, it's just natural, you know. So, absolutely. Now, tell us, what would you say is your number one personal superpower?
Hmm. My number one superpower, I am highly empathic. So I think when I sense what you feel, and I'm able to maybe put that into words, or help mm, experience that feeling at the same, like I'm at processing feelings, I guess is what I would say. And that's one thing. That then also my gift that I have is the gift of my voice, which is sometimes yeah, just things and thoughts will come. So I guess it would be those two things.
Beautiful. Absolutely. And you have a wonderful voice, very soothing, not only physically, but also the content of your voice. You have such a powerful, voice that can really shake and inspire people to do good. So absolutely, that's amazing. All right, now let's move on. So you mentioned that you love traveling. What was the very first trip that you took?
I was 12 years old, and the first time on a plane, I went to Arizona to visit my
Wow.
grandmother's sister and brother. And I will never forget it. I got really cool sunglasses that had rainbows on the side, and my siblings didn't get to go. And I was like the special one that got to go on the trip to Arizona to see the cactuses, because in Washington, we didn't have the
Sure.
desert. So, yep.
Amazing. All right, cool. Now, let me take in a different type of travel now down memory line. Go back to when you were a young girl. You know, when we're kids, parents, family, teachers ask us, so Cathy, what do you want to become when you grow up? What was your answer back then?
I wanted to be a pediatric nurse. I
Wow.
loved babies. I loved my brother. I just wanted to take care of babies.
Mm, all right. Cool. Now, let's stay to when you were, a young girl growing up. What was your favorite subject in school?
I would probably say, as a young girl, probably English or history.
Mm, okay. And the one class you could not stand.
Math,
Me too.
algebra.
Me too. Wow.
Geometry was amazing, but algebra, not so much.
Yeah. Cool. 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 Now, what was your very first job?
Well, my very first job was, I don't even remember how old I was, but when I was younger, in the summer, we would take the school buses. We would pack a lunch and they would pile us onto the school buses and they would drop us off in the strawberry fields. And we would pick
Wow.
flats of strawberries and we would carry the flats up. And then we had a little punch card and they would punch the number of pounds that we had. And at the end of the summer, or at the end of the season, we would take all those punch cards and turn them in for money. And then we would take a big trip to the city to buy our school clothes. We contributed
Wow.
to buying our school clothes, and I think I was probably, probably 10, maybe 11, because I think I started babysitting when I was 12. But yeah, the berry bus, we would go pick strawberries.
Wow. That's amazing. Cool. Now, let's move forward to now. Take a look at your path from the time you left school to now. How would you describe your path? Would you say once you started getting into one lane right after college, was it pretty much straightforward, smooth sailing, or was it like turns and twists, like a roller coaster?
That's a fascinating question. I in college thought I wanted to be the business woman, and I was going to go into the business leadership program. And I got to my accounting class, and I'd lived in Brazil. I had then come back to go to college. And so I sort of was a little bit more independent thinking than a lot of the other students. And when I got to the class and the teacher said, my name is blah, 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 and I'm here to make you fail, basically, it was the class to sort of weed out the people. And I immediately said, I'm not doing this. I'm not paying to go to school to have somebody torture me, right? So I'm out. I'm not doing it. At that point, my major changed. And I went down a very different path and I ended up studying Asian studies, which is kind of, everyone said, you're not going to get a job. Like, why would you do that? This is crazy. But at my university, which is a small college in Tacoma, Washington, they take 30 students every 3 years on a trip to Asia.
Wow.
And you go away for the year and you study a different subject in each one of the countries that you visit. So you're gone for the year and you live in country while you're studying whatever it is that you're studying, which is the topic. And so I got an Asian studies degree, and then I graduated and I came back. And of course, it wasn't super easy to find a job with an Asian studies degree, but back then you could get a temporary job that then moved into a full-time job. And I went to California. I got a temporary job in September and they hired me full-time in December for a professional career that was called investor relations. And back then it was fairly new. It was I worked for a medical device company that was the leader in what they did. And I had a female boss, luckily for me, who was an amazing mentor. And I was there for 5 years and I learned all about all investor relations, and I learned about shareholder communications and how to write annual reports and how to fend off shareholder lawsuits and all kinds of fun things. But my point to that story is I thought I was going to go into business, and then I opted out. But then I came back to business, which I had to learn how to read all the financial reports. I had to write the financial reports. I had to take the numbers and make a story out of the financial reports. I had to talk to the analysts on Wall Street to give them the forecast and the projections. So I ended up in doing finance for a girl who didn't like math or numbers, but it was a fascinating career. And I did that for probably 20 years. I left that medical device company. I moved back to Seattle when my daughter was about 18 months old, took a job with a consulting firm, and I helped companies go public. So that was back when we were in the heyday of the .com and before the bubble burst. And so I worked at several different startup companies, did consulting, and then I then ended up leveraging that expertise in investor relations to then work at Microsoft. So I worked at several different, you sort of hone your skill on how to tell stories from numbers. You learn different technologies, but it's really how to distill information and numbers into something that is consumable by regular investors. So anyway, it was kind of a circuitous path. And once I got to Microsoft, then I did that for several years before I moved into, I did some licensing and pricing, and I worked in a product group for 3 years to bring a product to market. And then I moved into sales operations. So kind of at a big company, you have an opportunity to make several career moves. And then I ended up going globally doing marketing and sales operations in Singapore. So
Fantastic, phenomenal. Wow. Wow, that's phenomenal, super exciting. Now, before we even get into that, I forgot to ask, I want to touch on something else you mentioned. You spent a year in Brazil. Take us to that time. What made you choose Brazil? How did you end up in Brazil of all places?
Well, I didn't get to choose where I was going. It was a program where they chose to send you where they thought you would go. I was a little bit older than some of the other. I had already graduated high school, so I didn't really need I was sort of taking what they would now call a gap year, which back in the day didn't exist. But I think they wanted older kids because it might have been a little bit more of a challenging assignment than some of the other places. And so they picked it for me. I wanted to go to, I don't even remember, somewhere in Europe. I think Switzerland was my top choice.
Do you have anyone else in the family or friends that had taken something similar in the past and that inspired you, or you just, let's go for adventure? You just wanted to do something different?
So I think two things. I think one, I wanted to go for the adventure, and I really, I don't know, international travel just really spoke to my heart. My grandmother was an avid traveler. My grandfather died. I never knew him, and she never remarried, and she used to travel. She'd been around the globe, I think 3 or 4 times. She was just a tiny little lady, and she would just go. I think her favorite place ever was Sri Lanka. She had been to like many places. So I think her stories of her travels, I think she really inspired my love of international travel in particular. And we did get to go on some trips together, never internationally, but we did get to go on some trips before she passed.
Okay. What did you know about Brazil before landing in Brazil?
Well, they sent me a brochure. What I knew was I thought the streets were all dirt streets, and that there were going to be snakes in the street, and it was going to be like I had a very different image than what I actually got to when I arrived there. So I knew nothing other than the little things that they had sent. Didn't even really know how to, because I had such a short time to prepare. I couldn't even learn any Portuguese whatsoever. So I landed fresh off the boat, as they say.
Did people around you, family, friends, start freaking out and trying to make you change your mind? Because that happened to me the first time I went to Brazil in 2005. People telling me, "Are you crazy? Why do you want to go there? Why don't you go to somewhere safer like UK or France? Go back to France or go to the US and Vegas." I said, "No, I'm not interested in that." So in Brazil, you're going to get kidnapped, you're going to get raped, you're going to get all this crazy things. Said, "Listen, relax. It's not going to happen." And people have all this crazy, ideas. Did you have anything similar to you? People trying to make you change your mind? Say, "Are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? Why Brazil?"
So I'll say two things. One, I come from I grew up in a pretty small town. And so
Mm.
because I was leaving right after graduation of high school, everybody else was sort of going off to college or you're doing something else. And so, yes, they definitely were like, are you out of your mind? What are you doing? Like, why would you go do that? I don't understand
Where is
why that's
Brazil at?
important.
Where does Brazil? Where is that even a country?
Right. What do they
A
do
different
there? What do
planet?
you like? Right.
They're gonna
And
eat you
so
alive. The Indians are gonna eat you
right, there's
alive.
piranhas there. Like, are you like, what do you, yeah, I got a lot of that from a lot of my peers. And then I would also say that it was my dad who was very reticent. I think my mom had been super supportive of this, along with my grandma. I think they sort of, coerced behind the scenes. And then my dad was like, you're really going to do this? And I said, yes, I'm really going to do this. I really want to do this. It's very important to me. So, but yes, lots of my peers, people thought I was crazy.
So once you landed in Brazil, what was your very first reaction?
I remember,
Did you have
so
the whole sorry, did you have the host family or someone picking you up at the
I,
airport?
I had an amazing host family that picked me up from the
Okay,
airport. Both
good.
of the mom and the dad were both professors, very well educated. Their daughter was in the US while I was in their
Oh
house. So it was
wow.
sort of like an exchange that way, which worked really well. So I kind of had her room, and um, I lived in a really great part of town. But I think I remember feeling like, oh, this is going to be good because everyone was really nice. They definitely had some misguided assumptions about what American girls were like based on movies. So that was interesting. There had been a young man who I had met no, he'd been writing letters to me because he had been in the US. And so because that was back in the day where you didn't pick up, there was no social media, right? You had to write
Yes,
letters
yes.
back and forth. And so he had kind of been writing. So I got to meet him, and he kind of took me under his wing a little bit to show me around the town. And so that was good. So I felt like the family could speak English, so that helped. But I will say one of my biggest initial memories was they really took it upon themselves to make me learn the language, which at times was super frustrating because I knew
Yes.
that they knew I could, they could speak English, but they're like, you're not here to help other people learn their English. You're here to learn the language. And so before you eat, you have to tell us, what is this plate called? What is this fork called?
Awesome.
What is it like? It was like really hard in the beginning, but I was so grateful afterwards. I mean, because that just really helped my learning curve.
Absolutely. Wow. So when you went back in Brazil, were you attending school there or trying
I
to
mean,
work?
no, I wasn't allowed to work, but what I did do, I attended sort of a junior school, I think mainly just to get involved with some of the other students and try to I mean, I couldn't pick up anything, but the
Yeah.
gal across the street went to the same school, so we would walk to school together. And you do your best, right? You just sort of figure it out. So I did that for the first part, and then the second part, I was at university and I was taking classes that, like singing classes, or I don't remember the other. Like, it was sort of like because I didn't need credits to go for school. It was more like a cultural exchange and kind of learning in that way. So that allowed me actually to do a lot more travel. So I did travel a lot within Brazil.
How was life as a student in Brazil versus in the US? What was the main difference or the main challenge or whatever?
Um, like I said, I think had I been needing to get grades, it would have been a
Of
lot,
course.
and graduate, it would have been a lot more pressure for me.
Sure.
But I would say mainly for me, you had to wear a uniform to school, which was new for me. I'd never had to wear a uniform before. And then the early morning, you had to go early morning so you could get home in time for lunch, which is actually their dinner, right? Like they eat the dinner and then they take their nap in the afternoon. So the schedule was a little bit different, right? And then also different would be well, like I said, I didn't really have to study. I didn't have to take the test. So I kind of had it easier that way, if you will.
That's amazing. Wow. So you mentioned that you visited around other places in Brazil. Which places did you were able to visit?
So I spent some time in Sao Paulo. So
Hmm.
while I was in Brazil, my parents had an exchange student for 6 months at their house who lived in
Oh,
Sao
wow.
Paulo. So he came and lived there. I was gone for a year. He was gone for 6 months. So when he came back, I met his family in Sao Paulo, and they let's see, I'm trying to think of where we went. They had a big farm, so we went to a really big farm. I can't remember the name of the city. They had a beach house, so we went to the beach up sort of outside of, probably a couple hours outside of. If you said the name, I'd probably remember it. You're really taxing my memory now. But so I spent some time in Sao Paulo. I did go to Rio. I went down to see the waterfalls, Foz do Iguaçu, which was
Oh, yes.
absolutely beautiful. I
Oh,
went up
yes.
north to Fortaleza, and
Yes.
Natal was like my favorite place in Brazil.
Where?
So in Natal.
Oh, Natal. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So you talk about football. We were there during the World Cup. So we were there on one of the nights that they actually lost the game, which was
Which World
like
Cup was
everyone
that?
was so sad. Well, then I'm going to date myself. It's 1980. It would have been 1986.
86. Okay. In Mexico. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. They lost
So
actually against France in the quarterfinals. I remember that. I was my first
yes,
World Cup. It was crazy. Oh, wow. That's one of my
but to
dreams to
be,
experience World Cup in Brazil. It's madness. You cannot describe it.
you can't
I know.
describe it. And it's, I mean, what I was saying, the sheer energy just of the people. And when they win, right, it was so, I'd never experienced anything so much pride, right? They were just so, it was like everything was about this game. And as exchange students, we didn't really know. We were kind of traveling around, and we got invited to some crazy, I mean, we didn't even know these people, but they were like, oh, just come. And so we were celebrating with all these people, and it was just, but they were very welcoming. And as long as, everybody was winning, it was just this amazing, you know, energy. But then when they lost, it was so sad.
I
Everybody,
know.
I mean, it was just so emotional. So yeah, I'd never experienced that before.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard that there was each time Brazil loses in the World Cup, there is a few people that have heart attacks, people that commit suicide. I mean, we talked about a massive country of what, almost 200 million people, and
Yeah,
in Brazil, football is not a sport; it's a religion. Number one sport in
it
Brazil is
is.
volleyball, and religion is football. When the national team plays, especially in the World Cup, everything shuts down. Companies let their
Yeah.
employees go home early. It's like a party everywhere, flags and all that. Oh yes, oh yes, it's
You got the
insane.
big music trucks that drive through. Yeah, it was crazy. It was good.
Now, did you get into Brazilian music?
Yes, especially like
I
in the
love Brazilian
Northeast.
music. Oh
Brazilian
yeah.
music was fantastic. The dancing was fantastic. The capoeira that they actually
Oh
were
yeah.
still practicing up in the Northeast was
Wow,
amazing.
amazing.
Such cultural rich. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, it's like being in the US because each region has its own dialect, right? I lived
Totally.
in the country. I had the country dialect, right? I would go to Sao Paulo and they're like, "Oh, you're from the country," which you don't think about that if you're in, right, only in your country, but it's everywhere. So yeah,
Wow, phenomenal. No, the reason I talk so much about Brazil is because I'm I've been fascinated with Brazil for the past 20 years. I love Brazil. I actually miss Brazil. Now, when you were there, did you get to experience the biggest show on earth, the greatest party in the world, the carnival?
of course,
Where
of
did you spend your
course.
carnival there?
I spent it actually in the local town in Uberlandia, and they
How was
had
it? Okay.
a beach club, and they I remember it being, well, because you get to have all the fancy clothing, and you get to I had a great group of friends, so I remember it being super fun, staying out all night and then watching the sunrise the next morning, and then you'd sleep all day to go do it again.
Party,
Yeah, it
yeah.
was, yeah, but people just happy and dancing and having fun, and the music that just kind of takes over your body. And um yeah, again, happy, festive,
Yeah,
positivity.
I did carnival once in Rio in 2009. I've never seen anything like that. I was literally at one time, I couldn't control the tears because I've been listening to carnival. I mean, I love samba, and being there,
Yes.
I've never seen anything that mesmerizing, that beautiful, that would put to shame any Broadway play or any Paris, theater, whatever. So that's something that everyone has to experience at least once in their lifetimes. It's that good, that beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, what would you say is one thing that you wish from the US was available or possible in the US that was not in Brazil at that time?
So what I wish I could have taken to Brazil, or
Yeah, something American that you missed other than family, obviously, and that you missed really much in Brazil.
So you're gonna laugh at me. This is gonna sound crazy, but the thing that I missed the most, because I was young and I missed Diet Coke. I remember thinking, I can you just send me Diet Coke? I know that's crazy. Also, we at one point, the young gentleman who came back brought chocolate chips, and we made chocolate chip cookies. I used to bake a lot, and so he brought cookies, and we made chocolate chip cookies. I'm pretty sure they have chocolate chips now, but they did not then. So I made like the specialty, chocolate chip cookies.
Wow, amazing. Now, what is the one thing from Brazil that you miss the most?
Well, of course, now you can actually get it from
Yeah.
the stores. But the thing that I missed the most, because I was in that central region, was the cheese bread, pão de queijo,
Oh yeah. Oh
because
yeah.
from Minas Gerais is where they created the cheese that goes into the cheese bread, and it's one of my favorite things.
That's one thing I love about Brazil. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Also, which I could never find, do you remember it came in a jar, and you would put, it was like white cream cheese, but it was like spreadable cream cheese that you would put on the bread that you would have for toast. I've never been able to find that, but
I think
you
I
would,
know we had that in France growing up, but I haven't seen it here. But I know what you're talking about.
no,
The one thing
yeah,
I miss about Brazil and love is the Brazilian food, those salgadinhos, those little bread inside. You have all kinds of meat, stuffing, and all that. Absolutely
yeah,
phenomenal. I miss acai. Oh my God, so good.
yeah.
The churrascaria, the steakhouse. Oh my God, there's so many things. You're making me emotional. I want to go back to Brazil now. Wow,
Yes,
that's amazing. Cool. We can do an entire episode with Brazil
yeah.
because we both love Brazil and it's been a big part of your life as well as mine. So, all right. So when you came back from Brazil, back to the US, we were you able to speak Portuguese or upon?
I when I was in Brazil, because again, I didn't speak a lot of English, I was fluent in Portuguese. I was even dreaming in Portuguese within that year because
Wow.
it was so condensed. At one point, um, I could pass for Brazilian.
Oh yes.
My hair had gotten very bleached in the sun, so I had very long blonde hair, and I prided myself in the fact that I really wanted to talk more like the Brazilians. I didn't want to be the standout. So I will tell you one other story, which my mom tells to this day. We were in Rio, and I was traveling with friends, and there was a couple who was on the bus, and they were American, and they were speaking not super nicely about some of the experiences they were having, or the people that were on the bus, or the fact, like whatever it was, they were complaining about it. And I remember thinking, they have no idea that I can understand everything they're saying, and I'm happy
Oh,
about that. But gosh, don't be an ugly American. Like, you have
yeah.
no idea who's around you that can understand what you're
Exactly.
saying. Like, just because you're
Exactly.
in a foreign country doesn't mean that they can't understand what you're saying. So it
And,
was very, I felt it rude.
and stop complaining about whatever country you're in. I've seen that on all my travels around the world. Oh, this is not as good. This is crazy. This is bad. I mean, listen, you're a guest here, you're a host. When you go to someone's house, you don't say, "Oh, I don't like your light. I don't like your chair. I don't like this." No, you just be polite. Same thing when you go to a country. Just common basic human decency, just being a
Yes,
good person. But I
that's
agree.
right.
I agree. Wow, that's amazing. So when you came back from the US, did you from Brazil to the US, did you have in mind to pursue a career to get you back to Brazil? Because as soon as I came back from Brazil to Canada, and mind you, I was only going for vacation for travels. I only had one thought in mind from the moment I was on a plane back to Toronto was how soon can I get back? Did you have those thoughts and looking what career can I get so it can be more permanent based in Brazil? Did you have those thoughts?
You know what I thought? So I did. I did think that, and uh, yeah, I had opportunities to. Uh, let's just say I don't think they were for real marriage proposals, but like, had I wanted to turn around and come back, I think I could have turned around and gone back. But I
Oh
was like
yes.
already
Oh
enrolled in
yes.
college. But what I remember thinking was, there's so much potential in this country, and one day they are going to really shine and be the leaders. Like, I really felt like the culture, the people, the just the authenticity, really, they have so much that they're gonna, one day they will be the leaders.
Yes. It's sad because everybody considers Brazil as the country of the future with potential, but Brazil has the potential to be not just to be a brick, country in development, but to be one of the absolute top superpowers. They have everything. They have very smart, educated, hardworking people. One of the most blessed country in terms of natural resources. Just the problem is, like most countries, is the few people controlling the country, just keeping the country you know like that. But hopefully that's going to change. One thing you also mentioned, that you can pass for Brazil, and that's very powerful, because that's the beautiful thing about Brazil, because everyone can pass for Brazilian, because Brazil is probably one of the most cosmopolitan countries in the world. I can't tell you how many times I met, like, for example, the same family, let's say three siblings, one completely black, one chocolate, one blonde with blue eyes. I've seen so many black people with blue or green eyes, natural, in Brazil. Because of
Yeah.
all this, they call it miscegenation, all this mixing for 500 years. You see some of the most amazingly handsome, beautiful people in the world because of that in Brazil.
Yes. Yes. It is really a cultural melting pot. It's really amazing.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I'm so happy that we connected, because Brazil is a part of my heart. Each time I go to the only place in the world that upon landing, I swear to you, I did like in the movies, I kneel down and I kiss the ground.
Mm.
And people are looking at me, what are you? What's going on with you? I said, you know what? I just didn't mind it. But wow. Listen, we can talk for hours, but let's move on. So you mentioned another place that is dear to my heart, even though I haven't been in Singapore, but I lived in Asia the past 6 years. So Singapore, wow. So you said you were majoring in Asian studies. You had the opportunity to go to three different places in Asia. So you spent a year in Singapore. Did you spend any time in other places in Asia?
When I did the trip, we went to 12 countries actually.
Wow.
Yeah, we stayed yeah, 3 to 6 weeks at each country, and we were traveling at a really interesting time in political history, I guess I would say, for a variety of reasons. And 30 Americans traveling together is not inconspicuous in most of the countries back when we were traveling. So yeah, we did 12 different countries, and then when I was in Singapore, we were only there for, I think we stayed there for a week, and I remember thinking, I could live here. This is a country where I could actually live. And that was back in the 90s, early 90s. And so when I was looking at sort of completing my desire to do a global role, and I thought about Singapore as one of the options, it seemed like a great fit, because it was the regional operations center for Microsoft. And then also it was an English speaking country that was sunny and also safe
Oh,
at the
yes.
time. So it turned out to be just a really great move. I loved living there.
Mm. Yeah, I keep hearing that. I have a few friends that live in there, and I know it's probably the cleanest place in the world, with Tokyo and Japan. And yeah, wow, amazing. So now, when you were in Singapore, did you have any, again, thoughts of how can I stay here more permanently? How can I find a way to stay here and not go back to the US? Did you have those ideas and those
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah. I had wanted to stay in Singapore longer, because I moved there with my kids, and my kids were
Oh yeah.
not, my kids didn't really adapt as easy. I underestimated the emotional,
Oh yes.
um,
Not easy for
yeah,
them.
challenge. It was definitely not easy for them. And I think, it's so interesting because they've now, I think now if we had to do it all over again, they would in a heartbeat, that would
Oh
be
yeah.
fantastic. But at the time, it wasn't, it wasn't enjoyable for them. And they were teenagers, so they weren't going to, we're going to punish mom. It's not going to be enjoyable for us. We don't want, like, so I think now it would be very, very different. And they're now world travelers. They love it. And they have kind of the travel bug. And so it's very different now, but it wasn't in the cards to stay at that point. But yeah, I would definitely go back.
Very awesome. Now, so when you went to Brazil, you invested time to learn the language. Were you also able to invest the time and learn some Chinese in Singapore?
I did not learn Chinese in Singapore. I didn't really have a lot of time. I
Mm,
had a pretty high level job, and I had 2 kids and trying to make all the adjustments, and so I did not learn Chinese. It's one of the things that I have on my bucket list actually. But when I came back from Brazil, I took a year of Spanish in college, and then I actually took 2 years of Japanese. So
oh
that
wow.
was my Asian language that I took instead of Chinese. Yeah.
Polyglot. Wow, phenomenal. Wow. Now I can tell you, Chinese is not easy. I lived in China for 4 years. I went there with the best of intention, but I gave up right away because it wasn't. It would have required me to almost like put in the time equivalent to doing like a PhD, like 5 6 years full time, and the ROI wasn't there for me. I didn't have the time, so instead I just hired just later whenever I need it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
wow, phenomenal. What would you say was the number one skill or gift that Brazil and Singapore blessed you with that you're now able to use that not only in your business but also business life but also in your personal life?
Perspective.
Mm,
I think I can much more easily put myself in someone else's shoes. I think I have a much broader perspective because I've been in different locations, lived in different locations. I've had challenges of, trying to incorporate into different environments. So I think it makes me adaptable and gives me just a different and global perspective.
okay, wonderful. Wow, that's phenomenal. Amazing. So many things we can do. I mean, so many direction I can take this. We can do a show that's gonna, give Joe Rogan a run for his money, go on a 3 4 hour, marathon. But we might do a part two in a few. I mean, in the new year, whatever. But for now, let's move forward and move on. So now, I'm sure you heard the saying that says, "Change your story, change your life." And by story, I mean what we keep on telling ourselves in our mind, on our head, on a daily basis. So when you, Cathy, had to change your story at whatever time in your life, how did you do it? Did you do it through the help of your friends, family, your relatives, mentors, books? So tell us a process that you used to change your story, to either change your life or bring your life to where you want it to be.
It's a great question.
Thank you.
I'm trying to think of the best example to. I think I've changed my life in big ways a couple of times,
Mhm.
uh, and so I'll just start with this. What I will say is, most of my life, I considered myself, because of whatever reason, birth order or how my personality is or whatever, that I was the peacemaker. I was the fixer. I was the middle. I was the person who kept everything at dynamic homeostasis, that it was just going to be, everybody was going to be happy at my expense. But I didn't know that at the time because that was just the role I was playing in life, right? It was what I had taken on without really consciously knowing it. I continued that into my marriage and became a fixer, a people pleaser and a fixer, and somebody who thought, well, I can make you happy. I am, what's not to be happy about life, and we can make this work. So probably the biggest change in my story was when I realized that just because I wanted someone to change to be the person that I knew they could be, they had to make the change themselves. And then was left with, you have to stop trying to change someone else, and you have to look at yourself and say, am I willing, is this what I want? Am I willing to move forward in my life in this way? So I ended up, I probably took about 10 years to make the decision, but I ended up actually divorcing my husband. And I would say in that process, I did rely on friends. I also, for me personally, I found my courage through physical strength. So I started going to the gym, and I started to lift weights, and I started to use the gym as a way to like gain physical strength that then added strength to my character and my conviction, and getting stronger and being able to get through it. And I think that helped me balance and helped me kind of gain back some of who I was. I used to love doing that. And so it kind of was coming back to myself. And so, yeah, when you make your mind up that you want something better, or that the role that you're playing isn't the role you want to do, you want to write a new chapter, you want a new end to the story, you want something different. Yeah, I definitely think it's possible. And that's how I did it the first way. It was just finally making that, it was a very long decision. But then once that decision was made, it was really moving through that decision, as uncomfortable as it was, but knowing that there was, there was um, better, better opportunities to be me on the other side.
Absolutely. Speaking of that, perfect segue. Sure, at the time it was really painful for you to go through all of that and feeling that this feeling of, powerlessness and being, I wouldn't say taking advantage, but in some ways, yes, by other people, and you're just being trying to play your role as to being the yes, 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 okay, let me, you're more important than me, whatever, because I've been through that myself as well, and it hurt like crazy at the time. But now that you look at it in retrospect, would you say that that was a blessing in disguise to open your eyes and to teach you a powerful lesson? Because for me, since I had my spiritual awakening, I don't look at when something bad happens to me, I don't play the victim and say, why me? Why did I do to deserve this? Instead, I ask, and I learned the power of asking the right question at the right time. So now I ask a question, which is, what is this trying to teach me? What is a lesson for me to learn here? So now that you look at this from this angle, this perspective, would you say that that was a powerful and valuable, beautiful lesson for you to learn? And if yes, what was the lesson for you to be learned?
I would say absolutely. And I think, for me, the lesson was exactly what I said, which is you have to love the person where they are. You can't love them because you think that they're going to change, right? You can't want them to change so badly that you change yourself, right? And so I think for me, it was really that knowing of, don't move in that way. If someone wants to be who they are, that's who they want to be. It's not up to me to tell them to be somebody else, or it's not up for me to, you know, make them be something that they don't want to be. So that was really the biggest lesson for me. And that
Yes.
it's not my job to fix anyone. It's not my job.
Thank you. I had this exact same message by the lady that I had earlier today on my podcast, and she said something very similar. It's not your responsibility to make someone else happy. No one can do that. It's every responsibility is an inside job. It's your own responsibility because no one, people can make you smile and just give you a boost and happiness for a short moment, but the real happiness comes from within. Only you can do that yourself. And you're not responsible for someone else's happiness or success or whatever. Everybody is, as we say in French, you're adult, you're vaccinated, whatever, in a different sense, not the current vaccinated, but different sense. You're adult and you're able to make your own decisions. So similar to that. So absolutely powerful.
I think I'll add one thing to that, which is very similar, which is when people are looking for their partner, or they make this list of all this, oh, I want all these things in this person. And when I find that person, it's going to be amazing. And someone told me once, well, you make that list and then you be that list, right?
Thank
You
you.
be the person that you want to go find, because when you are that person, it's when you'll attract the person to you, but you
Thank
have
you.
to, right? So yeah.
Absolutely. Because the perfect person want the perfect person as well. That's, it takes two to tango, so to speak. So exactly. Absolutely. Wow. Wonderful. Now, tell us about your business. What are you doing now? What beautiful impact you're having on the world? So tell us everything about your business. What you're doing now.
Yeah. So I launched a coaching business probably a couple of years ago, maybe not even. I've been a guide or a coach or a mentor most of my corporate life, and that's just I've just naturally kind of done that. So when I left corporate, I started a couple companies, and then ended up really feeling called to move into coaching. So I got my coaching certificates, and then started really officially or formally helping people. And I would say in general, to get unstuck, whether that's unstuck from a job, unstuck from a relationship. I say that I help overwhelmed professionals regain control of their time, attention, and energy to live the life they were born to live. So the life that they love.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, what would you say is your ideal client?
My ideal client is, like I said, an overwhelmed professional
Mm,
who possibly has lost touch with themselves, lost touch with their purpose, their goals, their intention, They're feeling like they're not really sure how to take back their time, how to take back their energy, where their attention's going, where's the energy leaking? Like, what am I doing? What am I actually doing? And again, it's like, are you at cause or effect with your life? Are you the victim, or are you going to change the story? Are you stuck in something where you feel stuck, but then why is that a problem for you? So kind of getting to the root of that. I work through 4C is the 4C discernment. So it's helping them discern really, or gain clarity on what their purpose is. What are you really doing? What's important to you? What are your values? Bringing creativity back into life, whether it's music or dance or painting or something that is creative, again pulling back to the essence of who they are and connecting with that. And then bringing consciousness into everyday life of, where am I spending my time? What am I doing 50 minutes every day on scrolling through whatever feed, or am I spending 15 minutes reading to my child? Like, what are you really doing? Where are you spending your time? Where are you spending your energy? And then I give the tools to change, right? Your consciousness level is there, you've identified this, and now it's changing the behavior. So that's how I work with clients.
Amazing. Now tell us about exactly what you do. What's the structure of your program? Is it like one-on-one, small groups? Is it like videos? Is it like tell us the structure? How long is your program? All the
Yeah.
details, that if someone that's interested now, that's watching or listening to this, would have all the questions, at least the
Yeah.
initial questions answered.
Yeah. So right now I work one-on-one with clients, and I have a 30-minute session where I meet with clients and I work with them to find out if we're a good match. I feel like you have to be a good match. You've got to,
Totally.
really have what I do resonate with you, and you have to be ready to make the changes. And so that's something where we both assess that. And if it's a good fit, then we can move forward. In 2022, I will be doing a couple of different group master classes to make it a little bit more affordable, so that we're working together in teams and that we can support each other. I can help support with this change is really tough. So as people are going through this process, having the daily support, having the network or the community that can help support and be uplifting is really important. So I'll be launching those in 2022, and those will be, there's a 3-month program, and then there's a longer 6-month program that then you could re-up if you wanted to do that.
Awesome. Fantastic. Now, I'm sure you've been able to help tremendously a lot of people. You've changed lives. You had some transformational change in people. Share with us, if you may, an example of the most remarkable transformation you've seen from one of your clients so far.
I love these stories. For me personally, what I would say is I have a client, and I may even get emotional about this, but I have a client who was very happily pregnant, and this is her second child, and she was doing great. And she called me at her 20-week appointment from the doctor, and she was devastated. She was hysterical, and she said, they just told me that the baby has a congenital defect on its lung, and he's going to have all sorts of surgery, and we need to be prepared. Like she was calling to say, help me gather resources so that I can have my other daughter covered, and I need your help logistically to do all these things that they say are coming that we're going to have to prepare for. And in the moment, this is where my voice came in. And again, I don't know where this was channeled from, but I was very, very calm. And I said to her, you are the person incubating this child. And just because this is what they told you, it doesn't mean it's reality. So you set the intention right now that your baby is going to be born healthy, that whatever this is going to resolve itself before he is ever born. You have the ability to eat well, live well, breathe well, all the things right now.
Think
The
well.
safest place, in the world right now is in your body, and you are solely the person who's in control of the fate of this child right now. So whatever they said to you, that you need to set that aside and set the attention. Your baby boy is going to be born perfect. And again, I don't know where that came from, but from that conversation, she said to me, can I just cry for today? I said, that's fine, you can cry today, but then after that, you need to you need to be honest. And I'm happy to report. And again, she did the work. I just was the person that did the mindset shift. The baby was born in perfect health, not an
Wow.
issue at all on the lung. The
That,
doctors couldn't believe it. It was truly a miracle. But it was because, again, and sometimes you just give people the permission to take back their power, right? Had I not said that to her, she would have kind of gone down this other road. But she set that positive intention and had the rest of the time, the next 20 months, to really work on, I'm imagining my baby boy is perfect. So
that's
anyway, that's,
amazing.
yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. Fantastic. You're doing God's will on this planet. Thank you for that, for her. And that's amazing. I've heard that a few times. I've had a few ladies on my podcast that change things that were completely helpless. A couple of them having like terminal cancers. They just doctors that had given up hope on them, and they just refused to accept that. And just, just like you said, feeding their mind, feeding their body with positive things, they totally cured it. The doctors are completely couldn't believe it. Again, it's all about our body as a power to create whatever we want. When a disease shows up in our bodies, because we've fed it in a way to make the environment, you know, good for that to grow. And now we have the power to change that as well. And that's something that a lot of people are not understanding or not accepting. But the moment you accept that, you will be in complete control of your destiny, of your health, of everything you do. Because our body, we have at the soul level, we're perfect. We have all the powers in the world. We're only using like what, maybe 1% or 2% of our capacities, not just mental, but physical. Imagine if we can unlock that. And that you mentioned that the powers to be, they don't want us to know all of that. Because the moment we start, igniting that, we consider to be, maybe some people will laugh at us, but we consider to be royalty because we have the best part of the DNAs from all of the species from around the universe. We have like in our DNA, we have what I read and saw is that we have parts of DNAs from 22 different races, and that's why we consider royalty because we have the best of like a selection, like an all-star, if you want, of everything. Like a menu. I want a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and you make your own your perfect race, so to speak. And that's why we are so powerful, but we've been led to believe that we're just not capable. But the moment and again, you mentioned that earlier, is that we have all the answers within. Look inside, don't look outside. Sure, outside it helps, but it's mostly inside. That's where the transformation, the magic, the change comes from.
Well, and that's why I said sometimes what I do is as simple as giving people permission to take a different viewpoint, or
Thank
to,
you.
look back at, this is what I have control over, this is what I'm going to impact, right? Instead of, I'm always at the effect of this other person, they're always doing this, or this other situation, or and sometimes it's just a shift in perspective, or a different question of, what if it were this? Or how about if you looked at it as this? And so sometimes just having, again, that perspective, where you can then give the person permission to come at it from a different angle, or to look at the problem in a different way, or to say, well, that's not a problem anymore because now I don't believe this, or whatever it is. So it seems really simple, but in the moment when you're stuck in that place, it's hard to get unstuck.
Totally, totally. And might be hard to get unstuck, but the good news is that we do have all the resources within us to unstuck ourselves. It's just a moment of accepting it and realizing that, and just working together with a person that can help you. In that case, you can help your clients do that, and other people have their own guide or whatever. Just don't be afraid to seek help. That's one thing that a lot of people refuse to do because of that stupid thing called ego. We think that we're above that. We don't need help. People should come to us. We need to help others. But even the greatest, whatever, that person as a coach, as a mentor, whatever. I wouldn't be surprised if even God had a mentor. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm joking, but I wouldn't be surprised. All right, awesome. Now, the theme of this podcast is cause. What would you say is a cause that is dear to your heart? Like for me, it's about, for me, the two greatest schools of life have been traveling and sports. That's where I learned the biggest life lesson. And that's why for my business, like the launch I just did, for each person that enrolled, I'm going to be sponsoring a year of access to football, soccer, and sports to an underprivileged child and teen in India for a year. Because I believe that these people, the most vulnerable people they need sometimes just a little bit of help in the right direction. I don't expect that I'm going to be changing their lives, but at least if you can expose them and bring them in the right circumstances, give them a chance of having a normal access to a different life, maybe that's going to be the light's going to steer them toward the right path. But anyways, my goal is I want to help them have access to sports and education for a year so they can change their life for the better and learn the valuable lessons. For me, sports again is the greatest school of education, of valuable life skills. Now, what would you say for you, Cathy? What is a cause that you're very passionate about?
Yeah, I don't have a solution for it, but I think a lot about, again, coming up with or putting energy towards a solution for this addiction issue because it is so prevalent in my area.
Mm-hmm.
But something that I do that I'm super passionate about that I also contribute to is um, all things related to water.
Oh
So
yes,
charity water is one thing where
love
they're
that.
actually getting clean drinking water. And then also there's another nonprofit called is it Legacy One? C1 Legacy is the name of the boat. But there's a National Geographic photographer and her husband who are out saving the oceans, right? And
Beautiful.
making sure that the animals in the ocean are safe and that we try to keep our oceans safe. So yeah, keeping clean water on the planet is really
That's
important.
vital. Absolutely. Have you heard of B1G1?
Have not.
Buy one, give one. So
Oh,
b1g1.com or buy1give1.com.
okay.
I was
Yeah.
fortunate to have both of the founders on my podcast. They're actually based in Singapore right now. I mean, they've been living in Singapore for the past year. Australian man and Japanese woman. Phenomenal story. Since they started this in 2007, they've impacted and helped over 270 million people worldwide. 100% of proceeds go directly to the cause, unlike other charities that a big chunk goes to admin fee, which is basically salaries for executives.
Mhm.
Everything goes to them, and an impact can start with as low as 1 penny. Like for example, whenever they get on a Zoom call, and we nowadays most of us spend most time on Zoom than out of Zoom. Nowadays they get access to clean water or education to children around the world. Each time a company sends an email, think about that, an email. Companies do that like I don't know, tens, hundreds a day, times a day. Someone get access to education, to a book, to a library, whatever. So the point is, this company has been doing phenomenal, and what I'm doing for the cause, it's also through B1G1. Highly recommend everyone to familiarize themselves with them because they're one of the most positive companies in the world, and they're really changing lives, changing people. They've close to almost now 300 million people. Their goal is 1 billion, and they will get there. So
That's
check it out. It's a
fantastic. Yeah.
fabulous organization with good people, and yeah, and I'm looking forward to having both of the founders now. I've had each of them separately on a podcast. Now I'm looking to bring them together to talk about what is next for them and all that. So absolutely.
That's great.
Thank you. Now listen, it's been an hour and a half we've talked. It's been an absolute pleasure. Let's wrap this off. I'm going to ask you now to finish a series of rapid fire question on advices. You ready?
Ready.
All right. So what would you say has been the best piece of advice you've received so far?
We didn't talk about human design, but the best piece of advice I've received so far with human design and basically waiting for the invitation to give my advice instead of just giving advice.
Oh, that's powerful. I love that. Awesome. Now, what would you say on the other side of the spectrum has been the worst piece of advice you've received so far?
You're too bright. You need to not wear such bright colors and you need to not smile so much. You just attract too much attention to yourself. So you need to dim it down.
Oh my God. Can't tell you how many times I've been told that. You're too happy. You can't be too happy. What's wrong with you? Or you're just too passionate, coming off too strong, too intense. Hey, that's me. You know, I'm sorry, but that's me. I can't change that. You're not going to ask the sun, hey, son, you're too bright. Can you just slow it down, dim it a little bit? Absolutely. Wow. Awesome. Now, imagine if you were blessed to have a time machine and you can go back in time and sit face to face with an 18-year-old Cathy. What would be the number one piece of advice you would give to her, knowing all that you know now?
I would tell her that her job in the world is not to fix people. that
Mm,
the best way she can have impact is if she is authentically true to herself and listens to her heart.
love that. Love that. Now, you don't have your podcast yet, but you will have it soon. Now, imagine that you have your podcast successful, and today you have the most special guest in the world, which is you're interviewing yourself. What is the first question you want to ask yourself? Don't think too much. What is the first thing that comes to mind?
Um, what made you who you are today? How did you find your path to who you are today?
Love that. Love that. And finally, my favorite question to ask: what is the smallest thing you've done that has had the biggest positive effect both in your life and business? For me, it's been starting this podcast. And by small, I don't mean something small. I mean the one thing you've done that has had the most positive, amazing, life-changing effect so far in your life and business.
Hmm. I guess I would say the one thing that I have done, which I think transformed me as a person, knowing that I didn't need to dim my light, was there was a day that I was in the hallway and there was a young woman who was obviously not. She didn't really know what was going on. She needed help. She didn't want to ask. Was in a big company. She was obviously fairly young, and I helped her. I stopped and I helped her, and that was my first mentee that I ever had. And she barely spoke English, and she was so grateful. And we had this amazing relationship. She went on to go to grad school. Now she's like a super amazing executive at
Wow.
one of the top consulting firms. We still keep in contact. And I would say that's probably the smallest thing that I've done that's had the biggest impact. I helped write her recommendation letter to get into grad school and have followed her career. And it makes me so happy. It's the one little drop that's still sending ripples because she's out impacting all these other lives and helping other women. So
Amazing. Fantastic. Speaking of keeping in touch, are you still in touch with the family in Brazil?
I am still in touch with friends from Brazil, but I am not in touch with the family. So the family's not on the social media platforms, which is what makes it so easy. So you can easily send messages back and forth, and it's great. It
Mm-hmm.
translates, and so, but they're not on any of those
Okay.
platforms. So it's harder. I don't write in Portuguese.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I can imagine. It's not easy. Okay. Now, if someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah. My website is FOURC discernment.com, and you can send me an email at Cathy at 4cdiscernment.com. But you can also set up time with me on my website, and you can also connect with me on LinkedIn, which is Catherine Corley at link, or I'm Catherine Corley on LinkedIn, and on Instagram I am also 4C Discernment.
All right, fantastic. I'm gonna put all of that in the show notes. Listen, Cathy, it's been an absolute honor, pleasure talking to you. A blast. Love talking to you. We have so much in common. We could have done an entire episode just on Brazil or Singapore or Asia, but we might even do a show just me and you, just talking about lessons learned from living abroad and dealing with all different cultures. That could be a
That
very
could
interesting
be,
podcast. Absolutely.
yeah.
But listen, I salute you. You're a true leader with a heart. Keep shining your light. Keep blessing the world with your presence, with your mission, with your smile, with everything. I'm honored to know you. I'm blessed to know you, and everyone that comes across you, I'm sure feel the same. So keep doing what you're doing. I wish you in advance happy Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, all the best wishes for you and your loved ones. Stay safe, stay awesome. God bless, my friend.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity, and to everyone, yeah, blessings around. So thank you so much.
Very welcome. We'll definitely keep in touch. So good night. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye bye.
Thanks. You too. Thank you.
Ciao.